My name is Brianna, and I will be our MC for today. I'm going to help us keep on track and walk through the delicious chocolate pairings that we have in store. So today we have 3 prizes to give away, and these are going to include not just a box of 4 like today, but 16 Bijoux Chocolates, as well as a ticket to our upcoming Jira Management Bootcamp. So we'll have 3 winners this morning, and each of them will receive these fantastic prizes. So with that, I am going to pass it off to Rachel O'Neill from Valiantys with us, and she is going to take us through our Jira content for today to help us tie everything together with Willy Wonka's factory. So as questions come up this morning, make sure to throw those in the Q&A chat, and Rachel will address as many of those as she can throughout the webinar and then at the end of today's session. So without further ado, let's give a warm welcome to Rachel.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much, Brianna. As Brianna said, welcome to Valiantys tour of Willy Wonka's Jira Service Management event, where we'll be imagining Willy Wonka's Jira Service Management use cases and features and sampling some amazing treats from our chocolatier who's on site with us today. We're so glad you could make it today. We hope you're looking forward to enjoying a box of this amazing Bijoux chocolate. Speaking of chocolate, we are delighted to be joined by Maggie Mobley, owner and chocolatier of Bijoux here in St. Louis. Our goal for today is to introduce Valiantys, the only global platinum Atlassian solutions partner. But first, chocolate. Maggie, are you ready?
Of course. Thanks, Rachel. So as mentioned, we are so fortunate to have Maggie from Bijoux Chocolates here with us this morning. So Maggie, would you like to introduce yourself here to everyone today and tell us what flavors we're going to be tasting?
Sure. So as she said, my name is Maggie. I'm the owner and creator of Bijoux Chocolates, a St. Louis chocolatier, kind of a small boutique hand-painted bonbon shop. That's, I think 6 years old now as of March. Yeah, awesome. We just turned 6. So we specialize in sort of the handcrafted, hand-painted bonbons that you guys have, which are really similar to truffles. If you have ever heard of either, they're essentially the same thing. Truffles are generally just a ganache filling. Bonbons have a little bit more leeway where they can have sort of the fruit and the caramel and a couple of other things in addition to the ganache, and they also tend to be a molded shape first, as opposed to truffles, which are a ganache that's sort of hand rolled into a shape. So today you've got 4 different chocolates. We've got the fig and goat cheese, the raspberry dark chocolate, a brown butter vanilla, and a 68% dark chocolate.
Awesome. So I just dropped a poll for everyone, and we are interested to see which flavors you are looking forward to most. Now, not to be biased, but I'm looking forward to the Valiantys chocolate. So I'm interested to see what everyone's looking for. Looks like we're getting those results coming in. There's a lot of you on here this morning. This is great. The polls are going pretty quick. It seems pretty even. Yeah, they're bouncing around pretty quick. So we'll continue letting that go. And Maggie, if you want to go ahead and describe that first chocolate that we're going to try, and then we'll see where these poll results land.
Sure. Okay. See here. Let's go ahead and start with the brown butter vanilla. So it's the plaid small short round chocolate. Everyone should have had a card included in their box on the off chance that you don't understand my description. That should have a picture of exactly what we're eating, with the only exception being obviously your guys' chocolate, because we don't make that all the time. So yeah, let's start with the brown butter vanilla, which is going to be it's half milk, half dark chocolate. It's kind of got that mid-range that sort of appeals to people who like milk and who like dark, because it's not too sweet, but it does have a little bit of the extra sweetness from that vanilla and then a little bit of caramel notes from that brown butter. That just sort of makes it a good sort of even-keeled chocolate flavor.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not too hard-hitting in one specific direction.
You know, I think I was looking forward to that dark chocolate, but this one was really good. It was really good.
Thanks.
Yeah.
It's probably one of our most popular flavors. Between that and the salted caramel, it's always like a pretty close tie-up.
Yeah, that one was delicious. I loved it. Well, looking at these results, it looks like everyone was kind of in the same boat as me. They were looking forward to that dark chocolate, and then right after is the brown butter vanilla that we just tasted. And as of now, I think my decision changed a little bit. So that was pretty good. But we are going to go ahead and move on. So Maggie, can you tell us a little bit more about how you got into this fun world of chocolate? How did you come up with
course.
the name? Where did you learn the
Yeah.
art? And how did you know you wanted to step into the world of
I
chocolate?
sure didn't. I actually was at Mizzou for computer science when I made a switch over to hospitality management. Calculus.
That'll
Calculus
get
got
you.
me. Calculus got me. So I ended up switching to hospitality management, and after I graduated with that, I ended up going to a pastry school in Chicago. With the intention of being a wedding cake decorator. I really like the artistry of it.
Yeah.
It's a very highly competitive field, and there's obviously a bit of an oversaturation because there's kind of wedding cake artists everywhere. And so when I got to pastry school, they had you do a little bit of everything, which is why I picked this school. It was a 6-month program where every week to 2 weeks was a completely new subsect of pastry. So I got to do breakfast pastries and cakes and chocolate and sculptures and just everything you can possibly imagine. And while I was there, I ended up starting to work at a chocolate shop, which made bonbons like these. And it was the first time I had ever seen colorful, shiny chocolates. And they were just so artistically unique. And the flavors were so interesting. And so I kind of fell in love with it just completely by chance. And so I pivoted a little bit from wedding cakes to chocolates, sort of focused on that. Graduated from the school in Chicago and moved back to St. Louis. And there really wasn't this here. So I ended up working at a place that was really similar. And it was quite small. And he ended up coming to me maybe a year or two in and saying, like, this isn't doing what I wanted to do. And I think I'd like to pivot and do something else. And I'm going to probably shut this down and start something else. And I was like, I'm just not ready to let it go. And so I just kind of started doing it on my own, and I was doing it in my house for a while for farmers markets. And then it just got way too big for my house. And I got a small retail store just across the street from you guys. And then we outgrew that. And so now we're in a bigger location in a different part of St. Louis. But yeah, it's been 6 years since I've bought that first chocolate machine and put it in my house.
That's awesome. Yeah, these are great. This is my first time having Bijoux, but it will not be my last. So that was awesome. So with that, we're going to throw it back to Rachel and hop into today's first section. And then before we get into that next tasting, I think we should give away that first prize, don't you all? So as a reminder, it's going to be these 16 pieces of chocolate from Bijoux, and we'll ship those to the winner and then a ticket to the Jira Service Management Bootcamp. So up next, we're going to go back to Rachel, who's going to show us a demo of service management requests in JSM.
Thank you so much, Brianna. And thank you so much, Maggie and Bijoux. I'm sure everybody is very much enjoying it in chocolate right now. I've learned that if you want to guarantee attendance for a meeting or webinar, offer chocolate. So as Brianna said, my name is Rachel O'Neill, and I'm a solution engineer here at Valiantys. While I work across many different products, my favorite thing to do here is to help a wide range of clients configure and implement service management. Let's take a moment. And so I think I want to drop a poll in. I'm curious to know who is a seasoned pro here and who is new to Atlassian products and who is here for the chocolate. I think Brianna's is dropping a quick poll. And we're seeing a bunch of responses come up here. Just give it another minute. Looks almost half and half between professional and new. So that's really interesting. And there's a couple of cheeky folks who are just here for the chocolate, which I absolutely understand. Give it one more minute here. Okay, so this is almost 50-50. More on the side of new than seasoned, but that's good to know. So for the seasoned folks of you, some of this may be very familiar. And for the people who are new, welcome. We're very excited to have you here, and we're excited to have everyone here. There are a lot of features that we'll be going through that may be new to you, especially for the seasoned folks. I'm really excited to talk about that. Okay, I think we're done with the poll now, so let's move forward. So no matter what your background is with Atlassian tools, you'll be able to grasp what I'm showing you today with Jira Service Management, or JSM for short. It's ideal for organizations and teams that want to create a customer-focused portal or service offering, as well as reporting an incident, problem, or managing their change process. This demo will focus on the typical service management use cases, but I invite you to imagine the reach of this tool. We can easily incorporate human resources, facilities, accounting, and more departments within JSM. Enterprise service management is the next big thing, and I encourage everyone interested in ITSM to consider the intense value of syncing up all departments together. When everyone is a customer, you see results fast. Come with me and we'll see how it works. So if everyone can see my screen, we should be seeing the Willy Wonka Factory Help Center. This is where the Oompa Loompas will go to ask Wonka staff for the items that they need to do their work and ensure that the customer gets the best quality chocolate and candy possible. There are additional intake methods such as Slack, Microsoft Teams channel, email, and integrations with monitoring tools. But we're looking for adoption here, and we really want to point most of our customers and users towards the Help Center. So a couple of things, let's just take a quick tour around the room here. On the top left, we have just the main button for the Help Center. So no matter where I am in this Help Center, if I go to a couple different places and I need to get back to the main page, I just click on the Willy Wonka hat and here I am. So this is the main Help Center. And again, continuing our tour, we can see a large banner in the background. And then we can see our requests here. So as a user, one thing I want to point out is that you don't need a license to get to this screen or to do anything that we're going to do in the next 5 minutes. You just need to have the URL up at the top here. And you can see my profile picture here as well, and some admin options on the right. So for a user, the thing that we're going to look at first is really the search bar here. This is for what we call a knowledge base. And if I want to type in something really quick, I can start to see a whole bunch of different things. So let me go ahead and click on this. So what this is an article in Confluence. Confluence is another Atlassian tool, and we use this for the knowledge base portion of JSM. Again, no license is needed to view or read these knowledge base articles. And knowledge base articles are typically siloed between the different portals or projects, which we'll talk about in just a second. But as we can see here, we can add links, graphics, URLs, and et cetera, to help that user with self-service when possible, and how to guide the user through the request submittal process when needed. I'm going to go back to my thing here. Great. And so after this, after the main knowledge base center here, and one thing to note also, you do need a license to create knowledge base articles, but typically an agent or an admin will do that, and they'll already have their licenses as well. So scrolling down here, we can, below the search bar, we can see a couple of different things. There are different portals that our users have access to. Each portal is a project within JSM. A project is a container of work or request items or incidents or changes. And it functions somewhat like, let's say, a project might in Jira software. In terms of also the knowledge base, I just wanted to mention one thing. You can also use it for agents as well. So when we take a look at the agent view, we'll be able to see a little area where you can have articles that are specific for agents to help them work these different requests that will be coming in. And you don't need a license for that either. Again, only the licensing if you're going to be an agent, not a user. And everybody that's at this current URL is just a user. So let's take a look at request types here. So at this point now, we know that there's a learn about here. We can also remove this. This is part of the knowledge base. But if I need a new Wonka thing or something else, I click on the appropriate article. But if I want to raise a request, I go ahead and click on raise a request. And now I can start to see a few different things here. There are different fields. Anything with an asterisk is required. And we can have all kinds of different fields within these request types. So for the following example, I'm an Oompa Loompa at a Wonka factory, and I need a new Wonka book. Why do I need a new Wonka book? Because mine is drenched in chocolate when it fell into the candy river. Why did it fall into the candy river? Because it was in my hand when I jumped in to save Augustus after he made a swan dive into it. This is just one use case, though. We can use this help center to request new employee onboarding, an accounting audit, external vendor support, and much more. I'm going to go ahead and start filling out the form. So, and this is the summary here. I'm just going to click, I need a new Wonka book. And I can also see additional articles popping up here. It really helps your users with self-service if possible, especially things like resetting passwords. There are a lot of items that users may need that an agent really doesn't need to use or need to see. And these knowledge-based articles can really help avoid anyone even putting in a request at all. They can help themselves. And there's metrics on whether or not someone looked at some of these articles and didn't put in a request. So that's good to know as well. I'm going to say hi. This here is an asset field. So what are assets? We'll talk about those in a little bit, but basically an asset is something that you track related to your service management. You can track anything with assets, from Wonka books to Wonka forms, uniforms to goldfish. Really anything that you can upload into an Excel spreadsheet or a CSV, we can track within assets in JSM. I'm going to go ahead and click on this, as well as supported laptops. This is also another asset field. And I'm just going to put a description. And I can also add attachments here. I'm just making sure that everything is filled out correctly. And now I'm going to go ahead and click on send. And after I click on send, this is what it's going to look like for a user. Taking another quick tour around the room. Again, we can see the same help desk icon on the top left and the same request here. I can see that there's a new request. I used to have 10, now I have 11. This shows me all the contextual information that I just entered into this request. I can also hide these details if I would like. And I can add a comment as the user here. Now, one thing to note here, when we get back to the agent view, agents can respond directly to comments and I can see them here. Agents can also respond to just stakeholders and put in internal notes that are not for customers to see. On the right here, we can see what the status is. This is part of the workflow that we'll take a look at in a little bit. I can turn notifications on here or off. I can also escalate this. I can resolve this issue or I can cancel it out completely if I wanted to. This shows me the request type that I was looking for, and this shows me who I've shared with. I'm going to go ahead and share this with Alana Grant. Because let's say maybe she's my supervisor or a collaborator, and I want her to be able to track this issue. Now I'm going to go ahead and click on requests, because now I want to see everything. And this is the last stop as a user / customer, whether internal or external. Anything we see after this screen is going to primarily be for the agent. So here we can see a couple of things. We can see a couple of filters at the top. I can go ahead and click on any of these if I wanted to, depending on the access. And I can also click on all and anything where I am a participant. So where it was shared, if I was logged in as Alana Grant, I would be able to see this ticket right now. And I can also sort by different request types. So here we have the complete list of everything that I've submitted recently. And I want to go ahead and just one more time and click on this. And now it's time to actually take a look at the request that I just made. And this is the request. So this is the agent view. And very quickly, just taking a quick tour around the room. On the left, you have your typical navigational panel. That's never going to change. That will always be on the left there. It will have some administrative things as well. In the middle, we've got a whole bunch of context here, including those asset management fields. And one really interesting piece of this functionality is I can see which exact laptop I chose. I can see all of the attributes that are listed for this object. And for different objects, it's going to branch out. You're really going to be able to see exactly what everything is connected to. You can connect assets to services, to people, all kinds of things. Scrolling down here, we can see an automation rule has done something for me. I know that for a Wonka book, I'm going to need a couple of other tasks to be completed for this. And instead of having to manually create these subtasks, I have an automation rule that went ahead and did that for me automatically. If I click down here in the history, I can see a couple of things as well. This is where you're going to find most of your collaboration areas. So as I mentioned before, we can add an internal note. We can also reply to a customer directly here. And on the right, some really important features here. We can see the workflow. If I click on this, I can get a picture representation of it and how that works. If I wanted to change a status, all I have to do is click. These are all configurable screens. Everything that we're seeing here is out of the box as well. SLAs are really important. And fun fact, Atlassian purchased an application that Valiantys wrote a few years ago for SLAs called Vertigo SLA, and they took some of that code and it still lives in JSM today for the SLA feature. So JSM is really in Valiantys' DNA. And scrolling down, I mentioned the knowledge base articles for agents, and this is where you would find those. So you can set up these articles that will help your agents every step of the way, really helps cut down in terms of training and onboarding for new agents as well. A couple of things to see here. We can add some additional configuration items here. We can also hide most of these if we don't need to see them. One other thing to mention at the top here, there's a couple of things here. One of the things for the request type too, all those fields that we saw, those are pretty standard fields. There are system fields and custom fields, but you can also add forms that will add multi-cascading fields and dynamic fields that will only show up when a certain condition is met. So that's a really important feature to talk about as well. And let's say there was an additional subtask. I can easily create it by just clicking on that button. And one cool feature down here is similar requests as well. So as an agent, where I would go to see this is queues. This is where the agents will typically be looking and monitoring for all of their work. These are easily configurable. Everything that we see here really is. And moving back here, and I've got about, a little bit left. Let's say everything is all set for this. I'm going to move this to resolving. So when we typically get a new request, the agent will monitor it, will work the ticket for any task that they need to complete or escalate to. But once it's completed, this will now disappear from the queue, from the open or pending request, which is a really nice feature as well. It just goes away on its own. And I think that's going to take care of our service requests for this portion. Brianna, I'm going to go ahead and give it back to you. I think we're really looking for some more chocolate.
Thank you, Rachel. And as Rachel said, we're going to start that next pairing. But before we get into that chocolate tasting, I think it's time to give away that first prize. So our first winner this morning is Darlene Rose. Now, later this week, you'll receive an email from me with all of the details of your prize. So we'll make sure to get that sent over to you and get that JSM ticket. Now, don't worry, everyone. We still have 2 more prizes to give away this morning. But like we said, let's get into that second pairing for today. So, Maggie, what do you have next for us to try? Can you describe what we're tasting and then how this specific piece was made?
Sure. So let's go ahead and move on to that raspberry dark chocolate, which is going to be the red chocolate with the 2 stripes on it. So it's going to be raspberry with a 64% dark chocolate from Madagascar. The cool thing about a single origin dark chocolate specifically is that it's very similar to wines and coffee beans and other kinds of things. The region in which they're grown, the climate, the soil kind of affects how the actual chocolate will end up tasting. So when you have something that's called a single origin, it means all of the beans that made that chocolate came from that specific place of origin. Therefore, the flavor profile is really specific and you can really pick out different notes of it. Again, very similar to like a cab sav from California specifically versus just sort of like a red blend, which just sort of generically tastes like notes of red wine. And so with the Madagascar 64%, it already has these really bright acidic red fruit notes, which is why we always pair it with something like a raspberry or a cherry, because it's already got that kind of tart acidity that sort of pairs perfectly with it and kind of gives you the extra punch of raspberry. And that's why it's red.
Yeah. That one was delicious. I really liked the raspberry. I'm not like a huge berry person, but that was very subtle. And like you said, it blended very well with the chocolate. I loved it. It was great.
It's like sweet and sort of bitter that kind of balance each other out. So it's not too sweet. It's not too tart, but it's not too in your face.
I loved it. Yeah. So I'm curious, do you usually have these same flavors in the shop all the time? Do they rotate? How do you guys usually do that?
So our shop can hold up to 24 different flavors. So like you saw on this card that you guys all received, there's 16 flavors on it. So those 16 are the ones that we have all year round. We always have those. And then there are between 6 and 8 seasonal flavors that kind of rotate sort of. We try and keep it seasonally, but then it also kind of depends on popularity and how much we make and if we have enough to make more. So I would say there's generally 24 total flavors with 6 to 8.
Yeah, that was great. Which would you say out of those and out of the kind of seasonal favorites are like the fan favorites of the shop?
I don't think you can go wrong with salted caramel. I
Yeah.
feel like without fail, that's the most popular one we have. And then from there, it's like, it's such a toss up because there are some people who are really fruit forward and there are some people who just want just dark chocolate. And then there's some people who like love the white chocolate ones.
Yeah.
I would say raspberry is pretty popular. The brown butter vanilla is pretty popular. The blood orange is actually pretty up there as well. I don't know. It's hard to say. It's like, they're all relatively popular, which is why we keep them year round. But I feel like salted caramel is going to be like the obvious winner.
That one's a good one. I mean, they have that flavor in so many different forms. So just
That's
like
so
a
true.
classic salted caramel chocolate.
Well, and it's such a perfect like savory and sweet, and it's not too sweet, and it's like vanilla and buttery. So it's like, I get it. I understand.
Definitely. Well, since we are talking about flavors a little bit more, how do you actually come up with these combinations? Is it dependent on what like specific chocolate you have? Like how do you come up with those?
It's a couple different things. I have an ongoing list on my phone actually. So if I go to a restaurant and I try a really cool cocktail or any sort of food that I think like, oh, this is really good.
Yeah.
I'll write it down as a flavor combination. Cocktails are probably the biggest one. But I've definitely had desserts before at a restaurant that I thought like, man, this is really good. Or just sort of seen something somewhere. And then sometimes it comes with basing it off of something that already exists.
Yeah.
Like the tiramisu, or I've done baklava before. I've done margaritas. Well, that's cocktail, but like desserts that already exist. We kind of pull from those too. So it's sort of a fun challenge to kind of take something like key lime pie and see if you can fit into this like tiny little bite-sized thing with all the different layers and all the different components.
Definitely.
You get like the marshmallow and the meringue and then the crust. So
I think that's interesting too, because some people don't associate some of those flavors with chocolate, but you somehow make them all come together, which is awesome.
Thank you. I try.
So I used to work in a bakery and I used to decorate cookies and all that stuff, but your designs are way better than anything I could do. So how do you guys actually put those designs on there? How do you get the logos? What's kind of the process with that?
So you always work backwards with these, specifically the ones that are molded into a specific shape that isn't square. So the round ones and the like hexagonal ones are a mold. There's this hard plastic polycarbonate mold, and it's what all the shapes come from. And so you always work from top down. And so you'll polish the mold first to make sure there's no smudges, there's no fingerprints, there's no leftover cocoa butter coloring, there's no watermarks. And once those are perfectly clean and fully wiped out, you paint first. Once you're done with the paint and the paint has dried, then you can put the chocolate in to create the shell. So we'll kind of flood the mold and then you sort of turn it upside down, and what's left is going to create that really thin mold shell. And then you can fill it with the flavors. And then once the flavors have kind of set and they've crystallized and they become a little bit more firm, then you can pour more chocolate on top and you basically cap it off to create that solid shell, which kind of blocks everything in and keeps it all airtight. And the coloring is it's a fat soluble food grade cocoa butter coloring. So we are painting them, but it's food grade paint.
That's a mouthful. That's awesome. Well, up next, Rachel is going to talk to us about another area of Jira Service Management, which is going to be incident management. Now, incident management is a process used by DevOps and IT operations teams to respond to an unplanned event or service interruption and then restore the service to its operational state. So, Rachel, can you tell us more about incident management?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, both Maggie and Brianna. Let's talk about incident management. It's crucial for businesses to have a structured approach to resolving incidents quickly. JSM helps to streamline this process by providing a centralized platform for logging, tracking, and resolving incidents. JSM can also link incidents to bug tickets in Jira software, so your DevOps teams and other teams can join the party. Before I dive into this section, I just want to highlight some of the features that you will get out of the box on any tier of JSM when you enable the incident management feature. So Opsgenie, which is an alerting tool, we can connect this to your monitoring tools. Opsgenie can be configured to automatically create tickets in JSM whenever a service that you're monitoring goes down. Opsgenie features are now bundled right into JSM, which is a fantastic upgrade. Through the use of alerting and scheduling, you'll be able to create on-call schedules, routing rules, and escalation policies to route those alerts to the appropriate Oompa Loompa responding team. The ability to create a conference bridge that is joinable from your open tickets for your responding teams and key business stakeholders is available to swarm around that incident and hopefully get it resolved as soon as possible. There are many more features that come with incident management, but I wanted to highlight those big ones. Now let's put our green wigs back on and take a look at that demo. So Veruca Darling has just gone down the Golden Goose hatch. Imagine I'm an Oompa Loompa and I'm experiencing an interruption in Golden Goose egg retrieval. I don't know that it's because Veruca fell down the chute and blocked it up. So the first thing that I'm going to do is go to the help center like I did before, so I can find an incident request type and submit one. So I'm going to go ahead and click on need to raise a request. And in this portion, I'm actually in the other portal for Wonka operation, because typically you might have different teams working on those requests as opposed to a service request. You certainly can have everyone working on everything all at once, but typically people, most users and most companies have segregated teams in some way. So in this area here, there's also another help desk. So, oh no, something broke. And again, I can get some more information on helping me and guiding me through that. I'm going to go ahead and click on report an incident and why we can't have nice things, which is typically because of Veruca and Augustus in this case. So when our clients need assistance, so in terms of the incidents, there are a couple of different things there are a couple of fields that will look different here. You might not see urgency in service requests, although I think we did in that first one. In this one, you're going to see things like affected services, a factory location. This can be a drop down with automatically populated locations, or you can manually create a custom field and have different things in there as well. So I'm going to go ahead and do this. Goose eggs, not dropping. And urgency, I'm going to say that's high, also high. In this case, I'm just going to go ahead and click on distribution. And the factory location is Walkerville. Where are my golden goose eggs? And again, we have the same customer view as we did before. Everything looks right. And one thing I want to do is share it with my Wonka visor. So I'm going to go ahead and share it with Mitch. And that brings us to, again, the end of the user experience for putting an incident in. Now let's take a look at a couple of different things. For the actual incident itself. So again, a couple more things in terms of the queues are going to look a little bit different here because we're dealing with incidents as opposed to service requests. I'm going to go ahead and click on this. And it's going to look pretty much the same as the service request area does. For the agent view, it really doesn't change very much, but there are some important distinctions when it comes to incidents. On the right here, we can see the request type, but also we can see responders. So this can also be a field within the request type itself. So let's say we have certain kinds of incidents that we know are going to happen, or a typical, after looking at our historical incidents, we can see that there are a couple of different categories. We want to have teams that are available to start swarming on those incidents immediately. So if the user is an internal user and is maybe already knows about, who the responding teams are, they can add one instantly. Or you can keep this in the configuration area only and then go ahead and add responders and teams as needed. You can also do this automatically based on components that would be feeding into an automation rule. And we'll talk about automation in a little bit. One other thing here is the major incident button. So when I press this button, not only does this now get moved to, a couple of things happen. I get to see it that this is a major incident, and it will get moved immediately to a queue that will handle only major incidents and immediately route it to the major incident handling team. So you don't always want to wait 60 minutes when something really bad happened to get someone to hopefully respond to it. When it's a major incident, you need people swarming it immediately, and toggles like this help us to do that. We can also see linked alerts if there are any. And we can also see similar incidents. And these are two very different things, because typically when an incident happens that's widespread, a lot of people will be reporting it at the same time. what AI will help us do, and we'll talk about that a little bit later as well, is triage them all together. And as opposed to an agent having to work all of them, we signal either a problem or a major incident, and then we focus on that one. A couple of other things here too. We can add channels here and immediately start a conference bridge, either in Slack and Teams, or we can also open a conference in Zoom as well. We can also put in stakeholders, and we can inform stakeholders specifically, and they may not be the actual user or reporter of this incident. One thing to note, we can also do this on mobile apps as well. The mobile app is really robust, and you can do a whole bunch of things, especially when it comes to the alerting and on-call scheduling. I want to take a look really quick at Teams. Let's take a look at Wonka operations. So for incidents, we know we're going to have teams that are helping us. In this case, we're going to go right to operations and take a look at some of those alerting features that I had talked about earlier. So we can see a couple of different things here. Routing rules, number one, escalation policies and schedules, all in the same place. We can see a few things on the left as well, but really we're going to be focusing mostly on these areas here. So I can easily create rules for routing that are really anyone can populate these just based on if-then statements. No code is required for any of this. I can also add several different escalation policies, again, based on the type of request, the type of incident, the type of problem. And I can add many, many schedules here. I can also take on-call schedules if I don't happen to be there, but I am the one that's going to be working this ticket. I can add overrides as well. I can also take on other people's schedules from the mobile app as well, just so that everyone knows. And there is a couple of really interesting features here. So I can look at things by month. I can look at things by calendar view. I can see multiple different schedules on here if I happen to have them based on the types of requests. It's really flexible, and it's baked right into JSM now. So you don't have to go to a separate platform, a separate product within the Atlassian platform to find these areas here. There also is alerting feature. So not only do I have the incidents, but I can create an alert here that is separate from the incident that helps swarming just on that one problem as opposed to the incident itself. And I can look at a couple of different filters here and features. One of the nice things about this UI is really all of your selection and actions are going to be on the left. So it always stays the same, and it's really easy to navigate. And let's just jump back to the incident itself. So again, up at the top here, we can start to see the workflow and work in progress. And we can also see these SLAs here. So we can start to see immediately the agent knows that I have 2 hours to respond for this, and it will be green or red depending on exactly how long it took me to do this. And I can also take a look at a few other things down here in terms of who's the assignee as opposed to the reporter. Really all the information that you could possibly glean from any one issue or ticket, we use those terms interchangeably, is available on this one screen, which is really great. One other thing I wanted to talk to, because we've got a couple minutes left in this section, is assets. So assets is a piece of functionality that is available in premium and enterprise plans with Jira Service Management. We saw that field in our request type. This is what it looks like on the back end here. So assets, again, are made up of three things. Object schemas, which is really how things are put together. And inside of those object schemas, you have the individual objects themselves, which could be the actual laptop that I have, Wonka top that I have, or the actual Wonka form that I have, or it could be the model of Wonka form or the model of laptop, or both. Really, it just really depends on what your use case is going to look like. And I can easily see schema configurations here, all kinds of things. It's really easy to administer assets within this tool. They've also added reporting for assets, which is a new feature, which I believe just rolled out. So that's really something you want to take a look at. More features are on the way for assets as well. And one thing to note is there's also an agentless scanner called Discovery for the assets functionality, and that's available in the marketplace. So while everything we've seen here today is out of the box, Atlassian does have a robust marketplace with plugins and applications to aid your experience and your users within the actual JSM experience. things that can make your portal look different, connectors to things like Power BI. There's so many things that you can do in the marketplace itself, but everything that we're seeing here is out of the box configuration. So attributes. So we've got the object schemas, the actual objects themselves, and then every object has an attribute, and they're really easy to add as well. All of these can be, you can also take a look at the activity going on behind the scenes for this particular asset. And I want to go back really quick just to show the schema one more time. So IT employee assets. And we can see the Wonka books here as well, and Wonka forms. But this is typically what we do here for assets. We upload a CSV file. We can also have scheduled imports. Typically, you'd probably have one administrator looking after assets. This is not something that the agents would typically be getting into. You would see the information in the fields themselves within the actual incident tickets and service requests and changes that we'll see in a little bit. But typically, this is on the back end. But it's a really great piece of functionality. You can link assets to services, people can be assets. It's just really, it's only your imagination and the imagination of your implementation partner. Let's talk about automation really quick, because we do have just a little bit more time. So automation is one of the things that reduces so much manual effort when it comes to service management, just in general. And I'm going to scroll down here and click on my project settings. Go to my automation. I also really love how everything is really easy to find in Jira Service Management too. So what is automation? Automation is built on three things: triggers, conditions, and actions. So in this case here, when an issue is created, I want it to automatically assign using a balanced workload. And I'm not going to get into the details of all this, but let's take a look at what this is. It's super easy to create on your own. Again, no development is needed for this. No developers are needed for this tool. You can do this yourself. But if I start here, this is my trigger. So when an issue is created and the condition is request type equals request a new Wonka book, then I want to do a couple of things. In this case, I want to create those subtasks that we took a look at. So for this type of request, I know, and for the components and conditions that I set, I know I have two subtasks that need to be created. So then I make sure to create the first one and then create another one. And then that's it. Once I turn it on, or if I update it, the rule has been updated. Now it's enabled, or I can turn it off at any time. So I enable that and I return to the rules. It also has a great audit log, so it can show every time something has happened and if there is an error here. And one really cool thing about automation is the community. The Atlassian community, it's huge. It's thousands and thousands of users within its own wiki that will be able to help you no matter what, any time of day. They're passionate about the Atlassian stack, and they're passionate about finding solutions and finding workarounds and configuration items that maybe you're having trouble with, or you're looking at the documentation and you're just confused. If you can't contact us or your vendor right away, hop on the Atlassian community. It's fascinating to see how quickly people will respond to questions and help. It's a really collaborative environment, much like Valiantys, which I just love. So, and with that, I think we're going to have a major incident if we don't get more chocolate. So I'm going to pass it back to Brianna.
Thank you, Rachel. And don't worry, everyone, we are going to try that Valiantys chocolate next. But before we do that, I wanted to give away that next prize for the morning. So our second winner today is Jeff Hagee. As mentioned, you'll receive an email later this week with all of your details so that we can get you registered for that boot camp and most importantly, send you that chocolate. All right, so as promised, this next piece is going to be the Valiantys branded chocolate. So I'm very excited about this one. I know I've said that about all of them, but I'm biased on this one. So before we dive in, I want to send out a poll. Now, I'm not the best with names, but I would love to see what you all think what the Willy Wonka name of this piece of chocolate would be. So we have 4 choices: the Everlasting Incident Stopper, the Incident Resolve Ripple Delights, the Scrumdiddlyumptious Tangrams, or the Valiantys Magic Change Control Drops. So let me send that poll out because I am very interested to see what you all think this chocolate would be named. So As those results are coming in, Maggie, can you describe this chocolate for us?
Yeah, so this is going to be your good run-of-the-mill dark chocolate. Kind of like what I had said earlier with the raspberry. This is also a single origin. This one is from Ghana. This one is going to be really mild in terms of, I mean, a 68% is not super dark to begin with, but in terms of dark chocolate, I think there's kind of a general thought that it's going to be bitter the darker it is, which is generally true. But like I had said with single origin beans, kind of having their own flavor profiles, some flavor profiles of some cocoa beans is bitter. Like that's the flavor profile. And then other chocolates are just burnt and that's why they're bitter. And so this one is incredibly mild. It's kind of got this like warm spice note of like cinnamon and just like fall spice notes, which is why I really like it. It actually pairs really well with, we do a Mexican spice chocolate in the fall.
Nice.
Like a little bit of cayenne, a little bit of cinnamon.
That sounds
like
good.
Such a perfect combination. But so for this one, you're going to have this like, again, very mild dark chocolate. It's kind of got that warm spice note. So it's just a general good popular.
That and I'm not saying this because you're on camera. That is the best dark chocolate I've ever had.
Thank you.
I have some Dove chocolate at home from Easter, and I've been snacking on those. And this is 100 times better.
I am a non-discriminatory. You eat whatever chocolate brings you joy. I do not care. I will never be offended. It's whatever makes you happy.
Yeah, that one was very, very good. I like that a lot.
You.
So, Rachel, I do have a question for you. Which name do you think is going to win this poll?
I hope the Valiantys one.
Well, let's see what those results are. Share those with everyone. So it looks like the Incident Resolve Ripple Delight barely won. We had the Everlasting Incident Stopper and the Scrumdiddlyumptious Tangrams tie. And then the Valiantys Magic Change Control Drops. That didn't win, but you know, it was still a really good chocolate. So yes, exactly. Thank you for that one, Maggie. That was delicious. So up next, we are going to go back to Rachel, and she is going to talk to us about change management while using Jira Service Management, automation for Jira, Atlassian Intelligence, and Atlassian Analytics. So we've got a lot of content to cover this one. So change management is a collective term for all the approaches to prepare, support, and help individuals, teams, and organizations in making some organizational changes. So let's head back to Rachel into the factory so we can hear more.
Thank you so much, Maggie and Brianna. I really appreciate it. So before I dive back in, I just want to highlight some of the features that you'll be getting out of the box on any tier of JSM when you enable the change management feature. You'll get a built-in change calendar, an automated risk assessment calculator, advanced approval workflows, and integrations with your CI and CD pipelines. So we typically see three types of changes. Standard changes, which are pre-approved changes that are low risk and they're performed frequently, and they follow a documented process. For example, adding memory or storage to something. A normal change would be a non-emergency change that requires further review and approval by the CAB board, either change advisory board, such as upgrading to new content management system, something like that. Something that's out of the norm, that's a new initiative that's not known. And then emergency changes. These kinds of changes arise from unexpected errors that need to be addressed immediately. Think implementing a security patch or resolving a major incident. All right, so even Willy Wonka's factory has normal use cases. In this demo, I'm going to show you change requests for a standard pre-approved change. So we moved, as with the last two requests, we start with the help center and we navigate to Wonka operations, and then we navigate to the right request type. Let's click on Wonka operations. Get a requested change. It goes through the standard one. And then we can see a few things here. So again, these fields are going to be different because it is a change. And this is also an asset management field here. Put in a planned start. And pick a time. So again, here we see typical things for changes such as backout plans, the implementation plan, a test plan. Again, these fields are all completely configurable to your needs and your use cases. That one. And I'm going to go ahead and click on send. And this takes me back to the user, back to the client view after I've submitted it. So we've seen this before. Oh, the status has changed. And I'm going to go ahead and open up that change. And now we have a pre-approved standard change request. So again, here, the context is going to look much the same, except for the fields will change. But again, everything looks the same on the screen. I can start adding things here. I can also do things like maybe there is an attachment that I'm waiting for, or a certain narrative or text that I'm waiting for in one of these fields. If it doesn't show up upon submittal, an automation rule can run and notify that customer saying, hey, we need additional information, or it can notify a supervisor or someone working on this particular kind of change to request more information. And that's just, again, one example of how automation can really power change management within JSM. We also see a couple of additional tabs here: risk summary, a changes tab, and then an incidents tab, because there may be incidents that are related to this, and we're going to need to be able to see this as well. We can also link this to tickets or change tickets in Jira software projects that your DevOps team may be working on, or other teams. But this all seamlessly connects to other products as well. Now, on the right panel, there are a couple of different things too. We can add an approval step. So we're going to wait for an approval. Now, we can also set these up completely automatically. I'm going to add myself here. Oh, add approver. So we can do approvals in a number of ways. We can have singular approvers for things like laptops and onboarding for HR. We can have it so your approver is automatically your manager in, let's say, an AD system or your user management. And other thing I can say here is you don't need a license to approve. You need a license to be at this screen, but you don't need to have a license to actually approve. You can get an email and click approve in that email, and then it immediately feeds that information back to this task, and you don't ever actually have to be within the ticket. So it really cuts down on a lot of licensing that you may have experienced elsewhere. I'm going to go ahead and click on approve. And now I can see it automatically switches to the next status. One thing to note here also is every time I move to a different status, whether manually or automatically, this can set in motion a number of things. Notification requests, notifications, permissions. If I need certain teams to work on X number of subtasks, when I change either fields, I can also have automation rules that are based on when I change a field, it can move it back to the last status if there's still something missing and it shouldn't be in this current status. There are so many rules, there's so many gates that you can put up using automation to really lock down how your process is operating within JSM. I can also add additional actions here. So let's take a look at what I think most people really like to see when it comes to the change management demos is the actual change calendar itself. So I'm going to click on back to the project and take a look at the change calendar. I want to see the month. So there's some filters up at the top here. And again, so now I can see for this particular month, I can see a couple of things. But let's talk about what exactly the change calendar provides. It provides things like visibility, a centralized view of all planned changes within an organization. This helps your team stay informed about upcoming changes, and it reduces the risk of conflicts and unexpected disruptions. Scheduling management, collaboration, the change calendars really facilitates team members working together, getting involved in the change management process together with the same contextual information. Users can add comments, attach relevant documentation, and communicate with stakeholders directly within the calendar interface. Integrations. Change Calendar also integrates seamlessly with other Atlassian products such as Jira Software and Confluence, as well as third-party tools that are commonly used in the IT industry. This ensures that the information is going to flow smoothly between the different systems, which will reduce that manual effort and improve efficiency. One of the things that I like the most, though, is the Change Calendar provides reporting and analytics capabilities, allowing your teams to track key metrics that are related to the change management activity itself. This includes metrics such as the number of changes implemented, the success rate, and any incidents or issues that occurred during that implementation, as well as backup plans and information is also can be tied to that as well. But this really gives your teams the exact kind of context that they need. So when you get into those CAB meetings and those change advisory board meetings, you're not all saying, hey, what's going on here? You're all locked into the same calendar. And one other really cool feature is when you're using Confluence, you can put in change templates, which is, again, a wiki page filled with tables and charts and graphs and contextual narrative for this particular change. So everyone is on the same page. And one thing to note here, if I click on this, I can see immediately information right here. I can also edit immediately right here. At the bottom here, there's an important legend. I can take a look at different things like freeze windows or a maintenance window. When I enter a freeze window, that means that no other changes will be approved for that time, even though you can submit requests for those changes. So it really is, it's 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. But the freeze window is really important for making sure that your agents can get back to those customers by saying, we have a freeze period here, XYZ. And in some cases, you can prevent a change from being scheduled at all. So in terms of how the change calendar works, this can really help cut down on time in those CAB meetings for you. It's a great piece of functionality for JSM. So now that we've taken a look at changes and incidents and service requests, let's take a look at two other pieces that are really, really important and is on everybody's mind: Atlassian Analytics and Atlassian Intelligence. So exactly what is Atlassian Analytics? Now that we've implemented JSM, we need to start reporting on how well it's set up our Oompa Loompas for success. Atlassian Analytics is a simple, flexible way of visualizing data across Atlassian products and other data sources, not just Atlassian. Out-of-the-box dashboards measure request management, incidents, changes, and service performance. Atlassian Analytics is currently only available in the Enterprise product suite. However, if you have one let's say you have Jira, Confluence, and JSM, if you only have one of those products that's Enterprise, it works for every other product as well, which is a really cool feature. So there are three main components to Atlassian Analytics: the data lake, which is the source; dashboards, which is what we're seeing right now. This is a template dashboard that I didn't have to change at all. It came right out of the box. And then the visual SQL editor, which is, I think, for a lot of people, probably their favorite part of this as well. But let's just take a quick look at what we're talking about here. So this is the homepage for Atlassian Analytics. If I click on data, I can see my data source. I can also do things like view access to this. I can change the data source. But again, this is really easy to look at. The interface is really nice to use. But really the interesting part here is the dashboards themselves. If I wanted to take a look at the one we had before, I just click on that one, or I can create one. I can start from scratch with an empty dashboard, or I can use pre-built dashboards. And I really want to show and this is just the start of this. We're going to have more and more templates as the months come on and more features are released here. But even just, I didn't make any of these. These are out of the box standard with Atlassian Analytics. It's so, so cool. Growing up with Excel spreadsheets since I was a wee young thing and having to learn VLOOKUP, I thought I was a princess when I finally got the concept. I don't have to do any of that anymore with Atlassian Analytics. It's just so cool. And a couple of other things too, if we click on the actual dashboard one more time. Also on the UI on the right is more contextual information. I can add things to these pre-built templates like custom charts. But I really want to take a look at what the actual editor looks like too. So let's take a look at. And as the little pop-up says here, we can create a basic chart in 3 minutes. Basically, we just start adding all kinds of things from all kinds of data sources. This is the Visual SQL Editor / Studio. So I don't have to know how to do JQL or SQL at all. I literally just start picking the fields that I want, and then I can do all my chart settings. I can pick the kind of charts that I'm looking for. It's a really, really, really great feature of Atlassian Analytics. It removes the need for complicated language, and it's really just plug and play, drop and create, and then you can take a look at it. However, if you do like SQL, you can also use that too. So it's super flexible for all kinds of teams with all kinds of different talents and skills. Because not everyone who's great at one thing is going to be great at SQL kind of thing. So I just wanted to give a quick overview of this and what it looks like, some of the things that you can do. If you know SQL at all or SQL at all, then I'm sure that hopefully your imagination is running wild right now with all the different charts and dashboards that you can create. Happy to talk about this more on additional demos too. Just feel free to let us know and we can always schedule one. And with that, let's take a look at our last piece here. I know that we're running a little bit low on time. So we're just going to do a quick overview of Atlassian intelligence. So what is Atlassian intelligence in general? What Atlassian says, and this is coming straight from their site, they state that employees waste about 20% of their day searching and gathering information. AI for Atlassian intelligence helps teams cut that down by finding the most relevant and contextual information that they need. AI takes data from Atlassian products and external products and supercharges your reporting and contextual gathering availability. AI is currently available in premium and enterprise plans. And just so you know that some teams are still trying to figure out how AI works and how it feeds into their products, you can turn this off as well. So you don't have to use AI, but you certainly can turn it off if you need to. A couple of different areas that we can see where it is in Confluence. So if I click on Confluence, I can already see Ask AI here. So I can say, what is the vacation policy? Or type in any kind of question here, and it's going to start to give me information. I can dive deeper with search results. And again, it just will continually find things for me. A couple of other places for Atlassian intelligence is automation. This is really cool too. Automation rules are not difficult to create, but this makes it even easier. So if I type in a rule, I can say, let's see, I'm trying to think of a rule here. Hold on. When an issue is created, assign it to Rachel O'Neill. Enter, and we'll see what it pops out. And there you go. I didn't have to do anything. I just typed in that one sentence, and here is my rule. It can also create more intense rules and more complex rules, but these are just with these two little features here, I think you can start to see that AI is going to be a big player within JSM, as well as the other products as well. But I wanted to check on one final thing before we get back to the chocolate, and I believe our final winner. If we go into this here, and if I scroll down into the comments, I'm going to add another comment here, and there's a summarize button here. So when history and comments are entered and input, all I have to do is click on summarize, and it will give me exactly the start of the incident as well as any other kinds of comments and any other history and activity that's been taken care of with this particular task itself. So I can then easily copy and throw this into an email if I wanted to, if somebody's looking for it, or Slack or Teams. But these three little areas where AI is starting to make some headway into JSM is really exciting. The next year, some interesting features are going to roll out. So I very much hope that everyone keeps their eyes on the roadmap for more to come. And with that, that ends our JSM tour for today. I hope you've all gotten a good overview of some of the things that it can do. We've really enjoyed having you here, and I'm going to pass it back to Brianna for our final winner. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rachel, for the incredibly informative content today. That was great. I am going to actually drop both Rachel and I's emails in the chat. Oops, let's get that poll taken off. There we go. So I'm going to drop those emails in the chat. We are going to address some questions at the end of today, but I wanted to throw those in there in case anyone had any pressing questions they wanted to reach out one-on-one. We'd love to talk to you. So those are in there for everyone to see. And we are going to do the last tasting for this morning. So Maggie, can you tell us what this last chocolate is, how it's different from the other ones, and how you made this one?
Sure. So this is going to be fig and goat cheese. It's the only white chocolate one we had today. This was kind of an experiment that we did just to kind of see. It was more interesting and different than anything else I had done, and I was curious how it would be received. To me, it's kind of like a summer charcuterie board.
Mm-hmm.
You've got the sort of tangy goat cheese that kind of cuts through the sweetness of the white chocolate. They kind of balance each other in a way that they kind of let each other shine. For me, white chocolate it has its place within the chocolate industry. I know there's the argument that it's not really chocolate because there's no actual cocoa in there. It's just cocoa butter, sugar, and milk. But for me, I think it has its place, and I think it's a really good sort of neutral carrier for other flavors. There's some flavors that you wouldn't really notice because either milk or dark chocolate can be just too strong and too overpowering. And so for something that's like really light and delicate like this, or like lemon or something else like equally sort of light and delicate, I think the white chocolate kind of works perfectly. At least in my experience, we almost always pair it with something that's a little bit acidic or citrusy, that kind of cuts through the sort of cloying sweetness. Nothing makes me angrier than something that just tastes like sugar. And there's like no other flavor profiles to it. And so with something like this, it was like kind of the honeyed fig, and then you got kind of the tangy goat cheese. And so it's kind of all my favorite things on a cheese board rolled into one.
I really liked it.
Chocolate.
I like goat cheese, and I think sometimes it can be a little overpowering, but this was very subtle and smooth.
Generally very subtle.
Yes, it was great. You could kind of get the hint at the end and the sweetness from the fig. It was perfect. I loved it. I really don't know which one was my favorite today because they're all so different. They were so good. So with that, we appreciate you being here with us today. These were all great. I hope everyone enjoyed them, and our winners get to enjoy the 16-piece box, so they get even more flavors. But with that being the conclusion of our tasting, I think it is time to give away one more prize. So without further ado, the last winner of this morning is Ed Parker. So once more, as I mentioned, go ahead and keep an eye out this week for details on your prize, and we will get you all squared away. So again, thank you to everyone who joined us today. We hope you learned something new, tasted something great, had some fun, and of course that we get to see you again. So we do interactive events like this throughout the year, and the best way to stay in the loop is to check out our webpage often or follow us on LinkedIn where we post those. So I am going to drop those links in the chat real quick for anyone that wants to follow us there, keep up to date. And those emails are in the chat as well. If you have any questions, please reach out to either Rachel or I, and we can steer you in the right direction of an event that would be useful for what you're looking for. So we definitely hope we get to see you again. And if you were not a winner of today's prizes, but you still want more chocolates like I do, I'm going to throw Bijoux's link in there as well. Please feel free to explore their website, and you get to work with the wonderful Maggie, pick out some great chocolates. So yeah, this was great. Thank you so much. We do have some extra time this morning, so I am going to throw it back to Rachel once more. We are going to get some of those questions answered. I know we've gotten some of those answered on the backside of things, but we definitely want to save time for some live questions. So Rachel, I'm going to throw it back to you to get those answered.
Sure. So I'm currently in a Q&A here, and it looks like 26 have been answered, and there are 5 left. So I'm going to go ahead and start with the first one. Can you restrict the ability to change the start and end date of a change once it is approved? Yes, you absolutely can. The next one is to create the automation to have a supervisor made as approver. Would that pull data from another system, or would it be built out in assets? The answer is it could be both. It could be a combination of the two. We could be pulling in supervisor data from, let's say, Active Directory, or any other Active Directory that you're using, or kind of user authentication and management. There are a couple different ways to do that. Typically, we'd have an approval step in the workflow itself, and then we can use automation to trigger, and basically, I'm trying to figure out the best way to put this in a small amount of words. This would pull. I would say that you would have an approval step, and then you would probably end up, if you're pulling data from an Active Directory, then it would be part of that. But I don't think it would have anything to do with assets particularly. We would look for the supervisor data outside of assets generally, I would think. Okay, the next one. If you set a change freeze, will that block a change from being allowed to choose dates within the freeze period? Yes, that is true. Yep. Okay, and the next one is, I like how the issue spans multiple days. I assume it is using 2 dates from the issue to choose the span. In Confluence, I think I can only use 1 date from the issue on the calendar. Is the change calendar a different macro in Confluence? I am on data center, not the cloud version. That's a good question. Wendy, if you wouldn't mind sending us an email to anyone who's on this particular webinar, I can get that question answered for you, because data center and cloud are two different code bases altogether, and they really do work very differently from each other. I think it's a different macro in DC, but I can check and get you an answer. And the last one, can we get a copy of the reporting? Yes, I believe you can. I'm going to go ahead and have Brianna answer that question.
Yes, absolutely. So I just threw our YouTube channel in the chat. If you subscribe to our channel, you'll get notified when videos like this one or past events, future events, when those get posted. Please feel free to explore around that page. You'll see some of the past events we've done. And if you want to keep an eye out for when we host those again, definitely do. But please feel free to take a look at that. You'll be able to share this link, and you'll also be notified once that's up on the channel. So definitely keep an eye out for that. And once more, Rachel and Maggie, thank you both for joining us today. It has been a real pleasure having you all here, learning about the beautiful craft of chocolate, and then pairing that with our Willy Wonka JSM instance from Rachel. So with that, we are going to give you some time back on the calendar this morning. Obviously, if you have any additional questions, please don't hesitate to email Rachel or I. We'll make sure to have Rachel address those or get those to an expert at Valiantys and get those questions answered for you. So those emails are in the chat if you do want to reach out. And once more, thank you all again and have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye.
Thanks so much.